Welcome, everyone. I'm John Ryan, and it is Monday, March 28th, 2022, and this is the edition of the daily triple double show for the NBA, presented to you by the Predictive Playbook and sponsored by SportsMemo TV. I'm obviously running solo today, and that's okay. We all have busy schedules, and I don't mind filling in for both of my co-hosts at this point. Hope you enjoy the show. I'm going to get right to it. I am looking at the first game, which is a big one. It's the Boston Celtics, who are taking on the Toronto Raptors. This line actually opened with Toronto as a 2-point dog. It has now soared to -8 in most places, and that's due to Jason Tatum not playing, Van Leet is playing for Toronto, and a host of other player personnel decisions that have been announced before the tip-off, which is always a good thing for us professional bettors to know. Then we don't have to sit around until 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock before tip-off to wonder who's going to do what. But I think it's pretty clear in this game what is happening. I'm a little surprised that this is steamed all the way up to -8. I had thought that it would stop around -5.5 and -6 at the absolute most. But I, in a rare situation here, agree with the line movement. It is a little bit excessive in terms of amount, but check this out. 55% of the bets are on Boston and 45% are on the Raptors, which means that clearly the big money had moved the market earlier in the day. The big money might not be buying it from 5.5 to 8 right now, but I don't know that. They actually could, but I think the initial surge, the big wave, if you will, was created on the news of the player personnel decisions by both teams. And now we have a situation where it is at -8. I actually like the Raptors here. I think they win this game by double digits, and I had said that earlier this morning in a write-up that I did. The Toronto Raptors are 10 games over 500, and Boston right now is the number one team in the Eastern Conference, and they would be the number one seed if the season ended today. Unfortunately for them, the season doesn't end today, and they are being chased by 4 teams, all within 2 games of them for the first overall seed in the Eastern Conference, and nobody wants to be seeded against the Brooklyn Nets at this point. It is almost a sure thing, I guess. I'll go on the limb and say that Brooklyn is going to make it into the playoffs, even if they are a 9 or 10 seed. Arguably, they're going to be a big favorite, especially now that the vaccination protocols in New York City have been lifted, and that allows Kyrie to play in home games. He didn't do so well yesterday. But give the guy a chance. You know, he made his decision about this. You know, it's all about the pursuit of freedom and happiness and all that good stuff, which I fully support. At the same time, it's going to take him a little bit to get used to the surroundings, even though it's his home court. He hasn't played on it in almost a year. So I think that combination, and then we don't know what the situation with Simmons is, but even if he comes back and comes off the bench to provide defensive presence while guys like KD and Kyrie are resting, I think that combination is going to be pretty lethal in the Eastern Conference. I would not be surprised to see the Nets make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. So in this matchup, we have a betting system that does support the Toronto Raptors, and the Toronto Raptors are a 68% winner in this situation. You're going to play on favorites. You're going to bet on favorites of 3.5 to 9.5 points that have a winning record on the season that are playing a team like Boston that has won 5 of their last 6 games and covered 4 or 5 of those 6 games, which Boston has. And of course, Boston also meets the last requirement that they have a win percentage between 60 and 75% on the season. So an elite team at this point. And with games played after game number 41, which is the second half of the season. That has made 68% winners on a 74 and 35 against the spread record over the last 5 seasons. It all adds up to a play here on the Toronto Raptors. So let's move on now to the second game. And that second game is the San Antonio Spurs, which are surprisingly in the hunt right now. I guess not surprisingly because of the way the Lakers are playing. But they are only 1 game behind the Lakers right now for the 10th and final spot in the playoffs. They're 14 games under 500, so casting that aside in the locker room, they should be, I expect them to be one motivated team tonight. And, under Popovich, I can't imagine them showing up flat against the Houston Rockets, who are dead last in the Western Conference with a 20-55 record. They're 31-43 against the spread on the year. The Spurs are almost an even 37-36 with one push against the spread. And away, they actually have a pretty decent record, folks, 16-21. And as a favorite, they're 16-10. So the Spurs here are in an excellent situation to get a win, close within half a game of the Lakers. And the way the Lakers are playing right now, folks, I don't know what to say about it. It's just mind-blowing. With the diversity of that team and the skill sets that each of those guys bring, that they can't figure out a way to win by now. And I figured by now, meaning the last month of the season, they would have figured it out, and they'd be charging up the standings, much like I think, as a perfect example is Boston Celtics. Maybe not that much, but a team like the Nets, all coming together at the right time, peaking at the right time. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Spurs are the last team into the playoffs, and wouldn't that be something? This game opened with Houston as an 8-point home underdog, a total of 233 points. And in this game, we're going to look at a few angles that do support the San Antonio Spurs in this game. Houston is 6-25 against the spread when playing against a team with a win percentage between 40 and 49% on the season in the second half of each of the last two seasons. Again, that's 6-25 against the number. Houston is also 13-25 when they're facing good teams that are shooting 46% or better on the season in the second half of each of the last two seasons. I could go on and on, but I won't. This play is on the San Antonio Spurs. I like them quite a bit. Matter of fact, this could be a 3% play for my premium clients, of which I must say I'm on a 21-10 against the spread run. That includes a few totals in there too. Totals are hitting about 77% over the last 60 days. So the NBA has really come into a strong period, which generally happens this time of the year. I have no explanation for it over the years, but for whatever reason, I tend to start out slow in the first month and a half, and then it grinds its way, and then all of a sudden we hit the gas pedal, and voila. And I don't know if that's because my models are becoming more familiar with the scope and the landscape of the NBA. I wish I could give you an answer on it, but all I know is I'm on a 21-10 run, and that's all good, right? And my NBA play will be released right after this show. So if you're seeing this show, make sure you get over to sportsmemo.com for $9 Monday and take advantage of both my NCAA play in the College Basketball Classic semifinal at 10 o'clock tonight, and also my NBA best bet of the day. And they're both $9 over at sportsmemo.com. Let's move on to the last game. And that game is the Miami Heat are at home. And now suddenly the Miami Heat are one of those four teams in the mix for the number one seed in the conference. I don't think anybody really wants to be the number two seed, because then you're playing against the winner of the play-in tournaments, which arguably could be the Brooklyn Nets. And if that, you just don't want to match up with them. I don't think any team would welcome that. And I think that all of you out there would agree with that simple fact. But in this matchup, we have, as soon as I get to it here, we have Sacramento Kings are a 12.5-point road underdog at the Miami Heat. Miami Heat are only getting 32% of the bets, however. And that right there is a good sign to bet Miami. The world is thinking that this is too many points for Miami to be given up in even a home game. I say that this is a sign that's contrarian, and the contrarian fade of the day would be to take the Miami Heat minus the 12.5. You could also do an in-game strategy, which I love, and that would entail putting 50% of your normal bet size pre-flop, in other words, before the game even starts, at the minus 12.5. Keeping that other 50% of your money, keep the powder dry. I normally split it up into 25% and 25%, two bets. So you would look to get Miami at minus 8.5 and then minus 4.5. The danger is, and it's not really danger, is that you don't get the other two pieces because Miami gets out to a 15-4 start and never trails. The opportunity lies if the Kings do get out to a fast start, and they've had many games this year where they've led at some point in the first half against just about, I don't know what the percentage is exactly, but I believe it's 78% of their games they've actually had a lead at some point during the first half. If that would happen in the second quarter, you're easily going to be able to get Miami at a cheaper price than 12.5. So keep that in mind for tonight's game, and that is my best bet strategy for this show. So we have Miami in game 50% pre-flop at minus 12.5, or even if it's minus 13, minus 13.5, whatever number you get. And then look to add at 8.5 and 4.5, respectively, 25% each on a normal bet size that you do. On the other games, I have leans on the San Antonio Spurs, certainly minus 8. Again, you do the same thing. You could take minus 8 pre-flop and then look to add 50% even at, say, minus 4.5. Then you have two bets that, if the Spurs win by 7, all of a sudden you haven't lost any money. You only lost the VIG on the first 50% bet. So keep that in mind when you do these bets. I'm finding more and more, especially with totals in the NBA, there's absolutely no reason for me to bet pre-flop, because at some point during that first quarter, you're going to be able to get a better price than what you're seeing on the board right now, and the board that I'm looking at right now. So that will conclude today's show. We'll be back again tomorrow with another edition of the NBA Triple Double. And make sure you get over to sportsmemo.com. I'll have that play loaded up in about 10 minutes. And there's an NCAA play as well. Both sports are doing well. We had a good weekend. We lost a 5%er with Kansas. That's actually the second time I've had a 5%er on Kansas that did not come through. It wasn't a horrible backdoor, but nonetheless, I think I was on the right side. It just didn't work out, and that's the way it goes. A loss is a loss, whether you're on the right side or the wrong side. It doesn't matter if you lose by the spread by 50 or you lose by the hook. It's still a loss. So I welcome you to get over there for $9 Monday and take advantage of the plays. And until I see you tomorrow, always remember two things. And I'm going to say this on every single show, and God willing for many, many decades. Bet with your head, not over it, and may all the wins continue to be yours. Thanks a lot for watching.